Hello, everybody, and welcome back to That Milan Podcast. Martino Puccio, Matt Santangelo here with you guys, recapping everything for the Milan preseason. Again, guys, we just appreciate all the support that you guys have given us this summer with all of our busy schedules and your busy schedules. You have still been coming on by, and a bunch of new people. We got a bunch of new subscribers from the last video. So, again, if you have not already, subscribe to us on Apple and Spotify, That Milan Podcast, on Twitter at That Milan Pod, and right here on this channel. Where we upload everything. It's been a lot of fun. Unfortunately, not a lot of signings to discuss this summer, unlike last year. But nonetheless, it's been great. It's been pretty exciting. And Matt, with the excitement is the preseason, because Manchester City, Real Madrid, Barcelona, all lost to Milan. Whether or not penalties matter or preseason mattering, it doesn't. It's still positive in a sense for Milan. So what were your kind of overall thoughts of this preseason tour? I think this was a success on all levels, played massive teams, played relatively well in these matches, got to see some of the stars as well for all the fans over here. So all in all, everything that you could expect or want from Milan on this preseason tour in the U.S.
It was overall a positive U.S. tour for Milan. I think beyond the commercial side, branding side, which I think was a smashing hit. Shout out to all the AC Milan clubs, around the North American area that came out, that showed up to watch parties. I know AC Milan Club New York did a fantastic job over a couple of weeks. I know the guys there are tired from all the running around they've been doing, but it was a great success on that front. And on the pitch, Milan got some pretty positive results, as you mentioned, 3 wins against, 3 big name teams. Now, obviously, a lot of these teams didn't have their full roster. They weren't going to go, pedal to the metal and play their top starting 11. But I think it was a really good opportunity for Milan to see, how Fonseca was as a coach. These were really his first batch of games. So I think overall the ideas showed themselves. I think it was pretty apparent very early on in that Manchester City game specifically, where I think that, despite having, a half and half, call it, lineup of regular traditional starters and guys who are going to feature this season for Milan and a lot of youngsters. Again, Sportiello late scratch. Here comes a teenager in Torriani who was really, really strong in the games he did play. I think that the idea is the blueprint for which Fonseca wants to play this season, I think showed. And there are positives in the attack, right? Pulisic looked really good. I think that's really encouraging off a great season that he already had. And I think he really does have the potential to evolve his game and really take it further in his second year in Italy. So big ups to him. I thought Chukwueze was really strong. That was very encouraging after a disappointing first season. And to see both those players coexist, I think was really important too, because I think they share the same role on the pitch, at least coming into last season. But now it looks as though that, hey, maybe there is enough of the ball to go around. Maybe Pulisic and Chukwueze could coexist. They could kind of interchange throughout a match. And we even saw that in the Barca game, right, where you got a glimpse of Chukwueze, Pulisic, and Rafa all at the same time. And we haven't even gotten to see our new signing and striker, Alvaro Morata, who, is going to have his official presentation tomorrow. So all in all, pretty positive. I think the defense, leaves a lot to be desired. There's still a lot of things to iron out there. Felipe Torriani did not look very encouraging at all. I think that Milan fans were hoping that, maybe it was more Pioli, right? Maybe Pioli didn't give him an opportunity for, whatever reason. But I think, look, you mentioned you can't take too much from preseason matches, but I think this was a real good opportunity for Torriani to prove himself. I think if he had 3 pretty solid games, I think that people could have said, okay, maybe I understand why Milan went for him. But I think now people are looking and scratching their head like, is this guy just going to be on the roster and then maybe get moved in January? It's a possibility. Again, overall, I think, a pretty positive tour of the U.S., and I'm just looking forward to meaningful games.
Yeah. Shout out Milan Club Chicago, Milan Club DC. They did a great job, had great experiences. Obviously, Peter Morgan, who does such a fantastic job. Pete Defeat on, as in DAFEET on Twitter /X. Does a great job. Works on the Milan media team. Basically does a ton of that. Super great guy. Always linking up with all the Milan clubs, really doing a great job of establishing that connection between club and players. Yeah, just real quick, just because I just wanted to pat myself on the back for this. It's great because we also, again, I still keep forgetting the match that these guys all played together in Serie A. You hear sort of this, number 10 with Pulisic thing coming from Chukwueze, coming from Fonseca. It comes from Rafael Leao as well, who was just saying that he has the skill set of all the attackers to best play in that position, right? Because we've seen him on the left succeed with Team USA, even Chelsea, Dortmund. We've seen him on the right just this past year with Milan succeeding. And again, with Dortmund as well. And then again, centrally, he just has so much quality on the ball. He has great work rate off the ball that he's going to be a success. And whether or not this will get a long burn throughout the course of the season kind of remains to be seen. It could change up some late market opportunities if that were to arise, right? Because if you're looking at Pulisic as more of a 10 now and an emergency winger, then that completely changes up your dynamic and depth, say on the right side, right? Because that means that Fonseca would likely want to keep someone like Alexis Salamakers, right? Because there's just that sort of, match there where he could play on the left, he could play on the right, as we've seen, and in favor of a manager who like we know this, right? With Alexis Salamakers, he's a coach's dream. He is exactly what a manager wants to see in someone. He's versatile, he's hardworking. He may not be the greatest, but he always has a good enough attitude on the pitch that's going to warrant getting him some minutes. Obviously, he played out of position in this final one, but I thought he had a good preseason overall. We'll see if it's ultimately true that they're going to keep him. You kind of can't go off of too much. But again, when a new manager comes in, everybody has a fresh start, from your third choice goalkeeper all the way up to your starting striker, right? And I find it interesting if I just want to jump to Torriani, and we could even discuss the Terracciano thing a little bit further. Terracciano played on the left for Verona as well prior to arriving at Milan. There were links to Torino as well. I think a loan would do him good. I think he's someone who needs more playing time. I wouldn't necessarily give up on him so easily, but I could understand where they're coming from with homegrown Italian players. He's obviously not homegrown, but he is an Italian player within the squad, so that might have something to do with it. But this Torriani story, talk about someone who really wasn't getting that much hype with the Primavera team, thrusted into the lineup because Sportiello has a hotel accident. And he's played great, not nervous, good saves, great reactions, did a great job in the penalties.
Good with his feet too, which I think is huge.
Good with his feet as well. Milan always upload some of their training videos in the preseason tour. A lot of the time you get to see workouts with the goalkeepers and kind of see what they go through in terms of training and demanding the ball, being able to spread it on their left foot and their right foot and distribute, because that's just a massive part of modern football now, right? You need to be able to do all of these things. So with Torriani, there was these rumors of Simone Scuffet, who we all know was a very hype prospect once. And I tweeted during the game, and I know even Ali from Sempre Milan thought the same, and I'm sure many others did. If Torriani's playing like this, just keep him. Just make him the third choice, or even be the backup, which Nicolo Schira has kind of alluded to, that Milan are kind of leaning in that direction. And that's just the seeds that are starting to be planted by Paulo Fonseca, Matt, because this is someone who maybe have not gotten a shot under Stefano Pioli, right, with the way he does things. It would have been interesting. And now, with a great opportunity, arises even greater chance to become a first-team player. This was a third-choice goalkeeper for the Primavera. This was a backup. This is not a starter. And again, I'm not going to Tom Brady because it's not like we're seeing one of the greatest goalkeepers here, but the story reminds me of that so much. And I just think it warrants a lot of praise, regardless of, whether or not he becomes a professional player at a high level, is that Torriani was still working very hard. Someone who didn't get as much game time, because I was talking to our good friend Scout 7 Calcio. He's like, you can't go off of too much because he didn't play. And it's stunning to me how you just get this faith from the manager, not only to start against Manchester City. He started all 3 preseason games, and all 3 were good performances. That, to me, is taking advantage of your opportunities. Yeah. And that's something great to see. And I think it's besides Liberali, this is my favorite story of the preseason. I think this is a great story for so many people. We'll see what happens. But it's looking likely against the first match versus Torino that this will be the backup goalkeeper for Milan. So a crazy, 6 weeks or so for the kid. So what were your overall thoughts? Because you saw him live. Did not look nervous. I know we discussed that a little bit.
I think that was a fantastic test for him too, for a team that's going to press the issue and bring guys forward and make the goalkeeper make a pass out of trouble. If make the right decision, right? Press the issue. And I think the thing that impressed me the most about Torriani is a player that, as I mentioned in our previous episode, probably came into this U.S. tournament looking to just vibe out, see some of the U.S. cities, train with the first team players, learn a thing or two, maybe gets a second half, maybe gets one start, and maybe he's an afterthought. He does a couple things, and he's back with the team in Serie C next year, right, for this upcoming season.
Futuro, yeah.
Yeah. So this is a prime example of a player, seizing the opportunity, as you mentioned, right? Injury to Sportiello, everyone's like, who's going to play goal? Magnon's still on holiday. And Torriani's like, sure, I'll do it. And a prime example of a player like punching above his weight, exceeding expectations, and now is going to find himself on the opening day roster. I think it really speaks to the fact that I think Fonseca maybe took a little bit more stock in these friendlies than maybe other coaches would, because I think that, maybe with Stefano Pioli, where his biases of, what his current team was, and he kind of knew the personnel, right? He had them for years, most of them, a couple players here and there, but more or less he knew who was who. He has seen a lot of these younger players, probably got reports from, the Primavera coach Abate at the time and was like, oh, this guy's this guy's that. And then you have Fonseca, who comes in, to your point, with a clean slate, and he's saying, judgment-free zone, like, I want to look at everybody. I want to see who can help me out this year. And Torriani's a prime example of that, right? Where, comes in, young player, and Fonseca is willing to give him an opportunity, and might even go as far as giving him a job on the opening day roster after being a third-choice keeper. So I think it's a prime example of players that are on the fringe that they can either, I'm just going to kind of lackadaisical, go about my business, make a couple passes, I'll make the team, or I know where I'm going to be. Or the guys like Alexis, guys like Torriani, guys who are like saying, like, hold up now. I'm getting enough burn. I'm getting enough opportunity. I could either play myself into a role and stay here. Alexis, really, you could tell he wants to be here. He loves Milan.
Of course, yeah.
And Torriani, same thing. And then you can have other players who are saying, I'm just going to take a back seat, go through the motions, and that don't really help their cause. Like, nothing on Adley, but this is the second coach that has basically said, I don't want to use Adley that much. I don't consider him a key player.
It's just a bad fit with the style.
It's a bad fit, right? Yeah. So I think it's a great story, and I'm excited to see, what he does this upcoming season. If anything, now, of course, he will probably wind up being the backup, and then at some point might even be the third choice.
Probably third choice whenever
Sportiello experience, right? It's great experience training with these top level, athletes and being involved in the big atmosphere, right? So he'll get his opportunity, of course, with Milan Futuro too. So I think it was a great story, and I was really impressed with how he handled himself in the games, in the moments in these matches where it was tense. Because in that Barca game, Milan scored 2 goals pretty fast. And then Barcelona were really putting guys forward, and the defense didn't really bail him out. So he was called on early and often to make key saves. He didn't just make the simple saves. And even in penalties, maybe you can put it down to Barcelona, kind of showing their hand a little bit. Some of the penalties weren't great, but nonetheless, between all the saves he made in regular time and in penalties, I think it was really impressive. And then maybe Milan has something here.
Yeah, and I think it speaks volumes as to the opportunities that some of these other youngsters could have too. I think it sends a great message to the Futuro squad.
Like, you can work your way into this team.
Yeah, I mean, Liberali also had his chances. Yeah. Like, you kind of see the reports. It seems like Chiesa is more tapped in than most guys. You can't really go off too much, unfortunately. But when it comes to this kind of stuff, it's exactly kind of what Milan and this management had envisioned. Not so much like to say, like, I'm not here to defend everybody. Like, everyone's going to get all upset. What I'm saying is that there's a reason that Futuro is in place. There's a reason they're investing so much in the youth teams and youth
They're
squads.
signing a lot of players too.
They sign a lot of players. They are trying to build something from the ground up because that is how greatness starts. And again, I'm sorry to bring up these references, but it's just a fact. When the New York Yankees turned everything around in the 1990s, it's not because they signed all these guys. They had a ton of money prior to that. It wasn't about that. It was building their own guys, their own culture, and becoming great. And the greatest of Milan teams were that because of players like Baresi and Maldini. I'm not saying these guys are going to be of that level. They produce plenty of other players, but guess what is the cheapest route? This. And it could help you immensely. And you're going to have fans of players that are fans of the club essentially at this point, right? Like they're all diehard. Like Liberali and Camarda are probably bigger fans than we are, to be honest with you. So the fact that they're going to have these opportunities, I think just Torriani in general is just it's been such a fun story and a positive in what is rare in Italian football, to be quite honest. It did remind me of Mihailovic a little bit. Just the overall situation when Donnarumma debuted. Because Donnarumma, we knew he was talented, separate from Torriani, right? And then he just got thrusted into that lineup. I think he played against Torino. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Pretty sure, yeah.
Where he debuted and you just knew where it's sink or swim. And that kid swam. And Torriani so far is swimming. So good for him. And kudos to him. So again, we're moving on to some transfer market news. This one came across our desk. I texted you last night about this. Sempre Milan and Ali and them kind of talked about it. 15 million euro for Federico Chiesa, who is on his way out of Juventus. Heard Thiago Motta mention that he's no longer in his plans. This has been communicated, reported by many people. It's also been stated that they're not even selling his jersey in the team store anymore.
Like the first team though today or yesterday.
He posted a picture as well with a thumbs up in a Juventus jersey.
Whether it's him, but whether that's him or not is people also
whatever. Either way,
no. But I'm just saying, like social media stuff. Everyone will.
I understand,
it's the player, but it's an agency.
But it also would be ill-advised.
Of course, I know.
Like it's just there's optics to it. The stuff kind of does matter, whether or not we take social media seriously. And I'm not even like arguing with you. Just like the overall point, it's just that's the reality of it. Listen, I think this player is not as bad as some think. He's not as great as he was or could have been because of the injuries, just not the same. The goal production is not there. I think he's like a better version of Salamakers, to be quite honest with you. I think he has a better goal scoring ability. I think he's a better passer. But work rate wise, these guys are kind of like in that same territory. Chiesa's not a reclamation project. For me, this player, whether or not he comes to Milan, and we'll kind of get into whether or not we think they should do this or fit, this player is still salvageable, in my opinion. This isn't someone that's just completely done. He's still capable of moving. He's relatively young, especially for Serie A. He's been capable. He really wasn't that bad for Juve last year. I think that's kind of exaggerated. He's been a big game player. To me, the wages have to come down drastically. Like, I'm not even like pondering this if he's even thinking he should get paid in that vicinity of which he has been. And I understand where he's coming from in the sense of, this is my current contract. Why should I step further back from what I was just getting paid? Right? This is how the market works, right? This is how they go through these things. Yeah, sure, I'm going to have to take less, but how much? But how much is less that it becomes a Paulo Dybala situation, Matt, where Dybala is just heavily incentivized at this point? Maybe Chiesa needs a contract like that. I think he could fit in back at Fiorentina. I think he could fit back in at Roma. I think Roma is probably his best destination in general in terms of starting role. I mean, they would love him. They would adore him in Roma. It wouldn't even be a question. For me, if Milan feel like Pulisic is a 10, maybe Motta loves Alexis Salamakers of some sort. And Chiesa, again, has to come down drastically from these wages. If Chiesa is willing to do so, Matt, lower his wages. Juventus asks for 15 million euro. Are you jumping on that deal?
It depends on what the package all in for Milan is, right? I think you mentioned, Alexis being a counterpart or a
That's just because Malta
counterweight.
loves him. That's just me spitballing.
Right.
Sure. But
So
yeah,
let's
I
say
hear you.
we go by evaluations and we say, hey, they're asking for 15 million from Chiesa, and Milan can say we can give you 10 and 5, 10 million for Alexis, so we can give you another couple million to balance it out, right? Milan takes a good portion of his wages, maybe not all. Maybe it's like a loan with an option, loan with an obligation under certain circumstances. I
I
don't
think his
think
contract expires next year, so I'm not sure if
so.
they.
That may not be an option,
Let
right?
me double check on that.
But
But go ahead.
I think that, look, this isn't, in my view, a finished player. I think, you have to kind of somewhat take the performances of the past year or 2 years with a grain of salt under Allegri for several players in this Juventus team, right? Where it's like, all right, we'll get to see under Mota, like, is Vlahovic the striker we saw last year and the year before, where he has these patches where he looks great, or can he be a little bit more polished, a little more refined? Can he take the next step under a coach that really puts him in positions to succeed? Same thing with Chiesa. I think we've seen it. It's not like this is a player that is foreign to having great moments and for being a great player. He did it at Euro. I know that was 2021. It feels like it was 5, 6, 7 years ago. But this is still a player that has age on his side. I think that a lot is really tied to how Fonseca views and categorizes Pulisic. I think that's the thing there.
Correct.
Because I think that if you're going to have Chiesa there as another winger, now you start looking around like, why we spend 15 million when we're already penny pinching and like nickel and diming teams to get players that we actually have to fill real voids within this team
soon.
Right, soon. And we're getting a third right winger, like a guy who's like maybe going to start some games, play some games.
Yeah.
It seems a little odd. It seems as though that Chiesa would be more attached to an end of the market opportunity where, let's say, Milan were able to ship out Adli and Pobega, and Salamakers is gone. They view him as someone they don't want to be part of the project going forward. Now it's kind of a conversation where it's like, hey, how much money have you got left? Oh, we got 10 million. Hey, how about we give you 10 plus 2 bonuses for the other 3? Now you kind of cut a deal. I think this is Milan exploring the opportunity. Again, some of the reports
I agree with you.
You got to kind of feel out and sift through. But I think that's kind of what it's tied to. If I'm talking strictly on the player, I've always liked Chiesa. I always think that he was a very strong player, good dribbler, very direct. He had some really good moments in Juventus shirt. Was a nice player at a very young age for Fiorentina.
Yeah.
If it's not Milan, I think it's definitely some other club in Serie A. And truthfully, I think under a coach that is going to really emphasize Chiesa and his game within that team, I think that he could still produce. I don't think this is a finished player at all. I just think it's a weird fit for Milan because they don't really need another winger. And it's crazy to think how far we've come in the past year where we were like, man, we need wingers. We had Salamakers and Macias, and now all of a sudden, like, we don't need right wing. We got 2, right? So it's like the conversation is kind of weird. It's like the timing of it is a little bit off. But I think that Chiesa to Milan is, to quote Kush, shout out to Kush. He has a great segment. He's doing fantastic content.
Okay.
It's possible, but I think it's also kind of possible rumor. I think it's kind of Juventus don't know where they want to go with him or what they can do with them. And it's the media trying to kind of push him on the hottest team or one of the hottest names in the market because they know it's going to yield clicks. It's going to yield a lot of buzz and frenzy.
Because he's still like the premier Italian forward.
Correct. Like he's
the
Euro winner coming from a big club. Hey, what about Milan? Whoa, this project. Like
his father was a big name.
3 or 4
he was rumored to
Milan fit in better with. Like you're telling me a team like Lazio,
I agree.
Like Roma, wouldn't benefit more.
I think Roma would be perfect if they want Sule on the right, and they don't really have anyone that great on the left, and you can have Pellegrini and Dybala centrally behind
Napoli. They're not going to do a Neo Napoli, but
you think he's an upgrade? I don't see it. I don't see. Yeah.
You think he's an upgrade over Politano? Like
what would you think Chiesa should do? Personally, I'll be selfish and say it's easily Milan. Like I would you lower your money, you go to Milan, but Roma, you could become a king. On some level,
I think Milan it's just an odd fit. Like this is a player that he's not like you get him. how many minutes is he going to get to really prove himself?
I think
It seems like
there's
it's like the perfect opportunity. Like literally, he has to. If he reduces his wages, they have no suitors for him, and Milan's like,
no, there's
we'll
not.
take him, and they get a cut rate deal for a player. I think Milan can use it as just an opportunity, like a luxury. You know what? He's cheap. Let's try it. Doesn't work.
I think as well. There's a couple angles to this and how this management works. I love Pulisic, and I'm not talking about players leaving. I don't have any information on this kind of stuff, right? Reality is, if Pulisic keeps playing this well I think he'll be here for another 2 seasons, at least, right? Offers come in for some of these players that are big money, right? Just let me finish.
I'll let you finish, but okay.
Just let me finish here.
Yeah.
No one is safe. Everybody has a price on this team.
Mm-hmm.
If you think that, and Chiesa would be harder to move than these other players, right? Like Pulisic, he's still the biggest name, and he's shown like what he could do everywhere. I'm just using him as an example because he's in that position where that surplus would be. Same could apply for Chukwueze if a team would offer 40 million, but I think teams would eye Pulisic more. For me, you can't rule it out because how do they also view and know Okafor, right? Do they view Okafor as a striker? Our good friend Franco from Milan Club New York City views him as a striker. So then he could rotate as that sort of, left winger, right winger. He could play on these different sides.
Did you see, sorry, Brooke, just to add before you continue, did you see the, I think I forgot who reported it. I know Sempre Milan put out an article on it. Fonseca reportedly views Okafor as like his Jonathan David. Like we talked.
Yeah. So again, that falls in line into what I was just saying. So if Okafor is viewed as a striker, then that means what? One less winger.
Yeah.
And minutes open up there potentially. Does that change? I think they don't want Jovic anymore, to be honest with you. I think they're trying to push Jovic out. I think guys like Jovic, Yassine Adli, probably a couple of other players don't have a future here. And Matteo Moretto, we should note this, that Milan above all are focusing on sales. So if sales are at the focal point of this, I think that's very important. It's just difficult because we don't know how Fonseca views these players because it's still different to him. Because he could say he loves and says Salamakers is great. He said in the press conference that you were at. Does he actually view him like that? Is it just one of these things where Galliani's like, 99.9% Thiago Silva is staying at Milan? He's gone.
Yeah.
So, we don't know for sure. I don't think this would happen. I ultimately think he goes to Roma. I think this falls into Roma's lap for him. And I think it's probably his best case scenario for multiple reasons. But I don't think the percentage should be at 0 for Chiesa and Milan. I think there's some possibility. And again, this always is predicated on you have to come down to Milan's price, not that Milan are coming up to your price, Federico. So ultimately, I think that's kind of how that's going to go. Any other final thoughts on Chiesa before we move?
Yeah, I was going to add something when you mentioned Pulisic and you said a couple of years. I know that there's players that have moved away from this team in the past, specifically Sandro Tonali, where it's like, every player has their price. But I truthfully feel, again, just kind of the vibe around Pulisic, when you see him, you hear him speak in the media. He seems very, 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 very comfortable. And he seems like he's found a proper home. It doesn't strike me as one of those opportunities where, again, I could be wrong, but I think he's got such a bad taste in his mouth from the way things ended in the Premier League. And he went to the Bundesliga. He's played in the Bundesliga already. Like, I think he's at that part of his career. He wants that.
I don't see what club he would go to.
But that's what I'm saying. Like this, he strikes me as a player that is here for 5, 6 years, 7 years.
I hope and I want that. There's a reason.
Of course. I mean, everyone has their play.
It's just the way that I know management works.
Of course.
And I just think that's a scenario in which they could use it. But also, again, we don't know what Fonseca's thinking. If Fonseca thinks like the Okafor thing, right? And the same thing with Pulisic, if he's changing these positions up for these guys, then that just opens up other opportunities and spots. We'll see. I still think to this day that this is by far the most important thing on this market is Yusuf Fofana and this lack of a deal. I think the impatience from the fan base from a larger scale sometimes is a bit exaggerated. I think they're doing a bit much. Okay. As for this topic, everyone's correct. I think every single soul that is fed up with this saga is right to be, because this is just tiring. Monaco, and I blame Monaco as well. I think Monaco are being unreasonable from everything we have read and reported. I think Milan are slightly being unreasonable. I think it's kind of silly. Come up to the number. Monaco, come down to the number. The player wants to draw. You said it perfectly on Twitter. I'll pull that up in a second while you go and speak. But just get this over the line. We've done this for so long already.
Mhm.
We understand there's 1 year left on his contract. We understand what happened with the Xerxes situation and how that's kind of been hanging over their heads. Like,
Yeah.
hey, Manchester United stole Xerxes from you guys. You want to do this again with Fofana? Because we could sell him there. He doesn't want to go to West Ham. He wants to play Champions League football. Obviously, sometimes players make exceptions for clubs like United when they get paid handsomely and they're still at Manchester United, that they're willing to make an exception that there's no Champions League football.
Ask Todibo.
Yeah. Well, that's great zinger. But I mean, listen, imagine if Milan just lost out the way they did on Todibo and Calafiori, whatever. Besides the point, right? Only Milan gets held to this standard. Juve, because they won 9 titles like half a decade ago. Anyways, we're sitting here saying this because we're kind of fed up, and we see it in the preseason, even though you can't take away too much. What was the biggest glaring issue against Barcelona? It was centrally.
Right,
It was
right,
in the
right
middle.
in front of the defense. Yeah.
It was in the middle of the park. And no offense to Ruben Loftus-Cheek. I talked to our good friend Demo and other player and other players, other people on Twitter that, listen, these guys are out of position. I'm not going to blame Loftus-Cheek too much for being in a double pivot. That's not who he is. He's a box-to-box midfielder, just like he is in a number 10. I judge him based off of where he's best fit, and that's a box-to-box, and that's Salah. Here, we still don't have anyone, dude. Like, we just don't. Like, to me, Benacer, he can do the job pretty well, but we all know Benacer going forward is better than not, right? Because him complementing with Kessie is who we're still trying to replace Kessie, for God's sake. We're still trying to do it. Fofana, from everything that we covered with him, everything you've seen with him, like, this is kind of the guy that they're profiling to do that. And if you know that is vital for your team, you have to jump at this opportunity, because it's one thing when we're like, it's mid-July, we're not in a rush. Forlani said we're not in a rush. It's August 8th.
That was what, the 26th? When he
Did
said
he? I don't know. I don't know what. I don't know what.
When Forlani said at that press conference that I was at, I was sitting there.
Okay, so that was the one you were at. Perfect.
The 26th, because the game was the 27th.
Top source, literally from the source. Okay, so he said it then. So, dude, we're 9 days away. If we don't even want to count today, we're 8 days away from the opening match. What are your like? I know you're frustrated. You're not visibly frustrated always.
2 weeks ago, he said that. Around 2 weeks ago, right? So
he wasn't lying.
Well, a lot can change in a couple of days, right? I think the biggest issue that Milan's having, one of the biggest issues, is I think they maybe thought they were going to be a little bit swifter in selling players.
You think? Okay.
I think maybe that's why, again, I ain't defending the management.
Sure.
Don't shoot the messenger. But I think that kind of played into the type of deals that they got done for Colombo and Daniel Maldini, where they were just like, we need to scale down. We need to shed weight. Maldini, like, we'll take a sell-on clause in the future.
Yeah.
Like, they kind of just like, we need to scale down. If you look through this team, we haven't talked about Origi and Ballatore that have been immovable. You're basically going to have to eat those wages to move those players.
Yeah, you're right. And I know what you're saying.
We haven't had anything with them. So there's 2 there that right off the bat that have to go, that are going to go in some way, shape, or form.
It's like almost 5 million.
Even they said like they're not training with us. Like they're training with they're training in Serie C. That's they're in a completely different league right now, right? So that's dead wages. Adley doesn't have a spot in this team.
Tough sell. Maybe Brentford. There's a rumor that Brentford offered. I'm not sure how true it is. I saw they were not
4 to 4 players that you probably have to move. 4 to 5 that you have to get rid of in this current team. So I think that's really put a damper and kind of really screwed things up, for lack of a better term, for Milan in their market. because I think that now you're starting to see the reports from Daniel Longo where it's they like Samardzic, they want to advance for this player, but they have to sell players. And you're like, yes, because look at the wages. Origi doesn't make nickels. He makes a good amount of money.
Yeah, it's almost around 4 million net, or at least 3.5
for a player
million.
that's scored 2 goals for us, right?
One with a
Ballatore,
banger.
Adley. So I think that's kind of really hurt Milan. And I think it's ultimately something that is not just plaguing Milan, but I think bigger picture, I think people are starting to kind of see the downstream effects of bad contracts and how they affect you on the back end, right?
Of
Where you
course,
look at
yeah.
Chiesa, they can't move him. He makes a good amount of money.
We see it in American sports all the time.
Look at Eric Milik. They're trying to get other players in there. They can't move him. He's like, I'm staying. Where am I getting the payday I'm getting right now?
Inter with Correa, they can't move him.
They
have a tough time.
That's where I think Milan are in a little bit of a bind here. Now, getting back to Fofana, the tweet you mentioned, the player is holding out for Milan. He's so keen on Milan. It's been a month plus by now. He hasn't even been able to step on the pitch at Milanello to train with them. The first match day is in a week. At some point, Martino, he's going to say, what do I do? Do I play another year at Monaco? That couldn't infringe on how much money I make on my next contract. Because if he doesn't play, he doesn't get consistent minutes. Now it's like, okay, well, now how much leverage do I have in negotiations for my free transfer? So I think that players at some point, they get a little tired. They want to know what their future is. They want to know where they're going to be playing football. They have to move their family. A lot goes into it. It's not just the dollars and cents thing here. Todibo's probably saying all the reports, he only wants Juve. He only wants Juve. And at some point, he's like, Juve are not getting it done. I got to go somewhere.
They did. Yeah. Well, yeah, you're right. It's different to me. It still seems like United are in on Ugarte, and that's kind of.
I've read otherwise. I've read from Ornstein a couple days ago that said the PSG's asking price of 60 million is deemed too excessive. I agree. I know Gonzalo or Putty would agree as well because he doesn't like him. So now they're pivoting away. And I think that's where you let the window open enough for Manchester United, and they need midfield help. They need midfield help.
They're garbage. They're a garbage team. They're not.
If it's not moving Casemiro now because he's making a lot of money, whatever, big picture, they're thinking, well, at some point we'll move him. We'll bring in Fofana because we're going to need somebody. So
they're gonna, yeah.
I think that Milan they've made 2 moves, and I actually do truthfully like the 2 moves they've made.
Of course,
for the money.
Yeah.
If we're talking strictly that, if we're talking strictly how slow they've been in other areas, I mean, for God's sakes, like they've been going after Emerson Royale, and they're competing with themselves, and they can't get the deal done. At some point, like if he's the right back, he's the right back. Just get the guy in. Get the guy in so he can start training.
I get what you're saying. I just don't care about that one.
But I'm saying it's like you can't even get the guy in that wants to join you,
but also,
you, and you're competing with nobody, and you can't get the deal done.
Well, devil's advocate for that. If you're competing with nobody, why are you raising your price? I get where they're coming from. On Royale, the Fofana stuff is
then go to somebody else.
They're not going to want to because the manager wants this right back, and I think they're looking at it like this is just on the Royale stuff. And I'll defend the Royale stuff, not because I like the player. I don't want him. I don't want him on this team. I don't think he's a good fit. But if the manager wants him, you still have kind of a surplus at right back. I'm not a big fan of a lot of them, be honest with you, right? When you have that, what are they in a rush for in that sense? Midfield, however, this is inexcusable. We're looking at it all the time. We still see the signs of it in preseason. You don't have anyone centrally, you are going to suffer. You're going to make Chow's life more difficult, Tomori's life more difficult, whoever's in goal more difficult. You can't have that. You can't keep exposing yourself to this. At a certain point, I've said this, and this was supposed to be this big market from Milan that I even thought they would spend 100 million. They're getting the CDK money next year. Guys, you need a central midfielder. You know this guy wants to come. You've agreed to terms already. Unless it comes out that Monaco are asking for over 25 million, which I don't agree with for Milan to do, right? Then then what are you doing? If you know that price isn't going to change, then 20. I know these negotiations go back and forth. We're not involved with them. They're a lot more complicated than that we're letting on, right? But at a certain point, do these colors not mean something? Does it not mean that Milan can't flex this financial power? It's one thing when you're sitting there saying, "Yeah, we're healthy, we're this, we're that." Listen, if Milan pay a couple million more for Fofana, Matt, are they going to be in the gutter? No,
It's
no,
just weird. It's
they're
just
going to be
weird though,
fine.
because it's just weird because I think last year you look back and they got Pulisic, who had 1 year left on his contract. They had Chukwueze, who had 1 year left on their contract, and
Yeah,
they paid similar fees for those players. And
correct.
those fees, if correct me if I'm wrong, are slightly higher than what they would be paying for Fofana, right? Pulisic
Yeah.
was 20 plus, 22,
I think the latest offer was Milan. We're at 20.
17 plus bonuses, right? That's
Right,
that's what I read for Fofana.
or I guess it's 17 plus the bonuses for 20. Either way, yeah, it's
Right,
cheaper than Reinders.
right.
Well, Reinders was different, but
I
Pulisic, Loftus-Cheek,
yeah.
like those guys. Yeah,
I think that Milan and Kush raised a good point in his most recent video, where had Milan not come in my view, and we don't know the negotiations, with frankly as an insulting first offer, which was reportedly 12 million. I think that kind of soured things. I think they think
maybe.
my feeling is they went into that negotiation and saying, "See how cheap we can get for Fon. He wants to come here, right?" And you give him 12 million, like I'd be insulted, and it's not even my
Yeah,
money.
yeah,
Like,
I know the one Kush was talking about because
right?
he was
Like
using his real estate
12
analogies.
million.
I don't
To
know.
me,
You're
that's
right.
low.
You're right, and it's funny because, and I know some people are going to comment, "Well, Fofana's better than Loftus-Cheek." Okay, here's a factor into this: one played in the Premier League, and the other plays in Ligue 1. One league is broke, one league is incredibly rich. There's that angle there, right? Like what is a player worth? The quality of the league. 1 year left on the contract. It's different when a player is coming from Chelsea. They're going to cost more than a player coming from Monaco, even though Monaco is a very respectable club. Fofana is a
Conor
respectable,
Gallagher.
very fine player. I don't dislike him, but we see how cheap these players are from France. So I understand where this angle is coming from. But at a certain point, why can't we be aggressive? If we're willing to go to 17 plus bonuses, then accelerate it. Let's get it done. Like we're
Like
we're we're, we're
especially with a
haggling,
new
we're wasting
Martino,
time.
especially with a new coach. If this
To-
is Pioli and it's like, hey, we kind of know what he wants to do, you know the types of profiles he needs, you know the type
yeah,
of system he needs, you earmark a couple people and you bring him in. Like the poor guy, for crying out loud, can we set our coach up for success? Like,
you're right.
we're
I
bringing in a
agree.
new coach. We have a pretty strong team. There is a
Yeah.
lot of ambition, a lot of hope around the upcoming season. Can we get our coach the guys he needs in a somewhat timely manner so he can actually have some games? Fofana is going to join and he's going to have the first. If he does join, he's going to have no time. You're right back, no time.
He could wait. But
But
the
I'm just saying
central,
to you,
yeah, I know. Well,
like I'm
to
not
me,
saying
and this
every other
was
team in Serie A has gotten their business done very
for
quickly
the
and they're
most
not
part.
still
For the
wheeling and
most
dealing.
part.
Look at Juventus. They got Coop Miners, Nico Gonzalez. They need a central defender in the
Well,
worst way.
Nico Gonzalez isn't over the line. That one's not done. They did
But
just
I'm
lose.
saying that they're going after players, and they have to sell a lot too. So the point I'm
Well,
trying to
they
make,
had an easier time selling. To be fair,
is that Milan have a ton of work to do, and unlike last year, which in their
I don't
defense
think they
last
have a
year,
ton of
the
work to do.
Tonali sale was able to kind of launch the market and
Sure.
accelerate the market really quick because they had that money coming in. Man, they've been slow moving this summer, and it's like very frustrating as a fan
But
to
yeah,
watch a team that has done everything by the book. They've done
yeah,
everything right with the finances. They've done everything correct, which is consistently in the Champions League, to still be kind of like 12 million plus 2 million in bonuses. Like this players were 25.
I get you. I get you.
Like,
It's like you're still operating under what you used to be instead of what
yeah,
you are now. And I get that. The Forlani also says himself that they don't need to sell anyone. For me, it's this. I agree with you, and I think everyone knows it. They're operating like they still had to cut costs to make profit.
right.
If you're still the best financial shape you've been in 20 years, and we've done far worse and more expensive deals than this Fofana one that in totality would cost less, like you got to just get it done. Like you just have to,
And
right?
that's
And
it's
like this
31 million,
this
right? You
whole
should
this
just
whole thing of like, you don't want to spend too much because you don't want to fall back into that whole right. Like the overall large fear is 2017 again, where you spend this money and you fail to make top four, even though this team has consistently done it now. They've won a title. They've been to a Champions League semifinal.
yeah.
There's that sort of risk you have to take. Not risk. I don't even think it's a risk at this point, but this financial aggressiveness that you have to make to take it to the next level. We always talk about that Maldini interview before the semifinal, and it rings true constantly. Whether or not I don't agree with the way Maldini did business all the time, as much as I love him, it just wasn't right. You have to eventually sell players to gain. Like everybody does. Like, like Juve did it. Paul Pogba situation changed them. Real Madrid, for God's sake, they've sold tons of players. Casemiro, Varane, Cristiano Ronaldo was another one as well. Like they sell players. They know the game. They know what they have to do. Manchester City, for God's sakes, 95 million for Julian Alvarez. At some point, you had to make a sale to push yourself further. Unfortunately, we know how this goes, and we repeat this on most episodes. What people want to see from Milan is what we all grew up loving, which is okay, we're probably not going to see the most financially dominant team. That's not in the cards, right? But eventually, where it's like Milan blows someone else out of the water, where they're like, nah, this is ours, take him, right? When is that? When is that going to happen? And again, we said this. Where's that statement signing? Because Xerxes was supposed to be that, right? Where that excitement was coming
He was
around.
supposed to be the face of the market, like the face
Right,
of
right.
the market, yeah.
Where is that? Like, it's like Morata, okay, good. Relative to other deals, good. Yeah, we like him. Pavlovic, yeah, kind of unknown, good, high upside. Okay, you can't hate these deals, right? Hard to hate them. But where's the one that everybody loves? Where's that deal? And it's just not there. And that's going to bring more pressure on the team. And also, by the way, if you're saying you want to fight for the Scudetto, you get this deal over the line because that's what's going to push you further. Because as of today, Matt, are Milan going to beat out Inter for the Scudetto?
No. They've
No.
only spent 2, if I'm correct. I mean, 5 million for Jimenez, right? 5 million. Morata's
38.
13.
38.
I mean, they haven't even spent half of what we thought they would spend, or around what they would spend.
Correct. Correct.
So it's not like we're not being unreasonable. Like
No,
we
no.
thought we were going to spend 40 million on Xerxes.
Yeah, which is like funny, right? Because if you're willing to do that, and you were also going to buy other players, like technically here they're still offering on the table 15 million plus bonuses for Emerson Royale, right? And then also reportedly the 20 million for Fofana. So you're adding like another like 35 million in total, right? In just the transfer fees itself. So the 35 million plus is 38, you're at 73. Like do it. Like just
And that's
like
not even including sales.
It's
Like,
not because also they got 25 million from CDK. That's coming in the financial year of 2025. They're spreading these out, right? It's a little different. And I was also mentioning this too. And I don't agree with it in terms of like they don't have to rush for Fofana. I think they need to be aggressive for him. But the overall point was, we need to get him in because of the team. I don't agree with that. I agree with you need to get him in because someone else might buy him. But in terms of getting him in the team, I'm not that worried because guess what? The majority of the starting 11 is already in place. Sans like what? Emerson Royale, right back. And obviously Morata just showed up today. They have everybody who's probably going to be starting, right? Reinders is there. There's Benacer. Like these players are there.
yeah.
Like long term over the course of the season, I don't want those as the primary defensive midfielders because that's not where their skill set is best attributed to. For them, it's Fofana that is really that missing piece to that 11 that's going to get in there because we have Pavlovic, right? We have that left-footed center back. You just have to do this. I'm sick of it. You're sick of it. We're tired of like hearing these answers and replies like we know what they're going to do or how they're going to do it. Like we affect this market. We don't. The reality is Milan need to get this deal over the line, and we're sick of it. And that's kind of the end of the podcast because there's not much else to say or talk about.
Just a quick
Go ahead.
final point. There's a roadblock in everything, right? I think players have to go, and in order for players to go, then you might see Fofana based on how Fofana deal plays out, how much money they spend, don't spend. Same thing with Emerson. Maybe we get that. Then that can hinge on whether or not to get Samardzic, right? Like Kusha said it best. It's great. They've reaching personal agreements with all these players. They can't get deals done on with the team, with the club. So like until we see something like that, it's unfortunately going to be regurgitating the same information, guys. I mean, we're trying to give you guys content. We're trying to give you just kind of raw, unfiltered, like what we're feeling. But truthfully, we're a week out from the start of the season, and I understand that other clubs aren't finished with their business. But this is us telling you, like, we agree with you when it comes to how the management's handled this market. Like, I agree with you. Like, I expected.
It's underwhelming.
I expected a smooth. Everything was in order for Milan to have a smoother market where they didn't spend a crazy amount of money, but they spent responsibly within their means after years of good financial decisions. Fixing the wages. Not spending ridiculous amounts of money on players and just building with their core group. And shoot, Martino, they said we didn't have to sell. It's almost as if it's like, you sure? Because if we sold a player, we probably would have had some of these deals done already. So it sounds to me, it's like, okay, we don't have to sell, but the condition is we stay as is, and we can't really add many more players on that. I don't know.
Or do you think it's just like they're playing this silly game of what we were just saying, in that they don't want to go above their number because that's their number?
But if your number's 20, Martino, not to cut you off, if your number is 20 million for Fofana, okay, you get to your number. Like, then what a conversation are we having if your number is never 25?
Right. It's like they're trying to win every single negotiation.
Like they're trying to get one over and win every negotiation. That's
you just can't do that. You just can't do that because it's a flawed way of thinking in life.
Every sport. It happens in every sport. It's,
you know what?
You have a player we want. He wants to join us. We understand you want to get some money back on this. We totally understand that.
Yeah.
We can both win, but we're not going to get him for peanuts. And we understand why you guys
Milan are trying to win every single deal.
But every single deal is like, we got to win by 1 million. We got to win. We got to win this deal. It's like we're playing that game.
And I understand where it comes from. And I think it comes from a healthy financial point of view, which is okay. But ultimately, you know what's going to forget about this 1 million, 2 million? Number 20. Number 20 is the most important thing next to number 8, right?
Yeah.
You have to win. You have to win. And if you don't now, right, after this summer, say, ultimately, I think they add a midfielder. I'm not 100% sure it is Fofana, right? This is just
Kone, maybe.
More or less that.
But is he even a defensive midfielder? I don't think so.
We don't know. We don't know.
The profiles are confusing. So maybe
above all, they have to make sales. And I think the sales point of view is coming from the fact that this is too many cooks in the kitchen. Because Adley doesn't fit. You have too many spots. You got to sell somebody to bring someone else in that makes more sense. It's not that there's 8 midfielders. It's that there's 8 midfielders and a couple of them don't fit. Because the reality is, if they sell Adley, they're still bringing in another midfielder. It's not the number of midfielders. It's who's the midfielder. That's the problem. It's not a financial thing. So for me, just get these sales over with. I get it if Adley doesn't want to go to Saudi Arabia. Whatever. Brentford's interested. 12 million. Okay, there you go. Bye-bye. Well, what are we doing? If Adley doesn't want to go, if he's going to be one of these guys within the squad, bro, I don't care how many NBA jerseys you buy. I like you. You're interesting. But you know what's above all? Milan. And I'm sorry. If you're holding that back, you got to go. Sorry. You know what I mean? It's for the best of the club. It's for the best of his career at this point. Doesn't he care about his career? Don't you want to go somewhere that you have an opportunity to play and build off of something? Come on, man. He has a role as a professional player somewhere, right? I don't think this is this guy can't play anywhere. He's not Hachima Store. He's just not at the right club for him. It's just not working out. You got to go. So with that, we do too. So Matt _Santangelo at AC Milan Bros. Any other cool, interesting projects that you have coming up? Any fantasy stuff that you want to discuss, or you don't have any?
Yeah, I have a fantasy article coming out.
Okay, there you go.
Tomorrow, maybe Saturday. It really depends on the editor when they decide to post it.
Sure.
That's coming your way. I've done a couple recent articles for Milan Reports. I did my recent one on Pavlovic, kind of give a brief description of his style, what I think he could bring, how he maybe elevates the rest of the defense. So you guys can go check that out as well.
Yep. Always great stuff. Again,
also, last thing. I did 3 profiles for Football Chronicles. They put out a series of 99 profiles, 9 over the next 11 days. I did 3 profiles. The first one dropped already on Giancarlo Simic, who played really well in his debut against, I forgot the team name off the top of my head. But yeah, so go check that out. And the 2 other
against Antwerp, right?
Antwerp, yes. And before people come for me, I used FootMob. They had him as a midfielder. Someone said he played in central defense with SofaScore. I don't know what you guys prefer as far as football apps. Maybe you guys can put in the comments. So,
Again, That Milan Podcast. Shout out to everybody else at That Milan Pod as well on Twitter. Shout out to I just want to get his name because he DM'd us. I don't want to botch your name. It could be Rajaith. If I say it incorrectly, I'm so sorry. You're most likely listening to the podcast. Rajaith Kumar. Just want to give us a shout out for shouting out many other podcasts. And we just appreciate a very wholesome comment and that DM from you. We love supporting everyone, just like Fabio and Gio for Milan Coast to Coast, Sempre Milan, Old Hard Rosso Nero, the MLM podcast with Gino and Max, Kush, obviously. Trying to think of some more. Obviously, that Milan Weekly podcast with Vinny and Steve. Those guys are just the best. They're the funniest guys around that keep it real. And again, all those clubs out there that do so much work, Milan Club DC, Milan Club Chicago, and Milan Club New York City, who were obviously all involved in these preseason matches. Kudos
Kicks and Picks podcast too. Wanted to quickly shout
them out. Kicks and Picks, yeah, obviously. I was just thinking Milan stuff. Yeah, Nick, Scotty, and Steve. The guys are just always so
I joined
great.
their podcast too. I don't know if you saw it, I think.
I was in there a lot.
In the comments.
Yeah, Carlos was in there. He's like, "Is this real? Is this true?" Yes, you idiot. It was real.
Go check that out too. Those guys are great.
You think they did a whole podcast with AI? You 47-year-old geriatric. Anyways,
he's nuts.
He probably won't get far enough into the podcast to hear that. But anyways, at Martino_Pucci on Instagram, Martino Pucci on Twitter. Again, the support has been immense. You guys have been so much fun to kind of chat with. Hopefully, I'm off for the Torino match. We don't know what's going on with Matt as far as his availability. We might be going live after the match. I might be in New York City. Stay tuned for that. And next week, we should be having a preview of the entire season for Milan.
Hopefully some new signings to talk about too. Hopefully.
Probably not. But anyways, we appreciate all of your support. Any other final comments? Probably not, right?
Just thank you to everybody that continues to support us. I know the market's been frustrating, but really excited to preview this season next week with Martino, and really looking forward to having meaningful Milan games. And don't blame me for my please win tweet if Milan don't win.
It's your fault, you bastard. Other than that, thank you.